Hey everybody, thought that I would go in and do maybe not a deep dive on this one, but go ahead and do a shallow dive. If you want explanations on each of these items, if you go back a little bit, I did a deep dive a couple weeks ago on all of, maybe not all, but the vast majority of these deliverables here and just kind of went into a little bit more detail. A quick caveat, just because something is at 100% on the roadmap, it does not mean that it's 100% complete and dropping into the game, or even that they're not going to do any more work to it. Sometimes that just means that the teams that they have planned sprints for have actually completed their work, and it's possible another team might pick it up over here further down the line. So with that in mind, I have a couple notes here of things that were interesting that happened, and I was just going to kind of run through what I was seeing for this week, just on kind of a quick update. Hopefully this will be short and sweet. Let's see. So the first one, AI arcade machine, almost done. This one actually should be almost done, just given the teams that are working on it. This is just AI behavior. And in the same vein, we've got the AI ladders, which is just down here. So this is cool. This will be AI will be able to be much more mobile, moving around, especially once the nav grid for them is all set up. The nav mesh for AI, which I think is down a little bit. Planetary navigation, yeah, there it is. That wrapped a couple weeks back. That combined with that, you're going to start getting more and more realistic AI behaviors. And here you've got AI untrained combat and the usable systems. Both of those are wrapping soon. So maybe not 3.17.2, just because a lot of the AI behaviors seem to be a little bit reliant on the servers. Like if you're ever on a fresh server, you get SEALs Team 6. If you ever get on a bad server, they're basically T-posing. You can walk up to them and punch them to death and they won't do anything. So probably waiting on server meshing to really see that. So let's kick down a little bit. So we've got a bunch of things in here. But one of the more interesting ones is the Argo SRV. This is the tugboat. It's about a quarter of the way through its planned sprint. Again, on any ship, this is just the vehicle content team. So these are guys doing the white box, the gray box, basically just building it out. You're going to have the downstream teams doing lighting and stuff like that are going to pop up on the end here. So this thing is not actually dropping in December. It's probably going to drop for Q1 of next year or Q2. They'll drop it in when they think it's ready, but it's not going to be December unless they really start making huge jumps. We'll probably see the downstream teams come in sometime around Q4. If they come in on Q4, we might be seeing that one soon, but don't count on it. Atmospheric pressure damage is right here. That one just wrapped, so when you're flying down through Crusader, that one will pop you. BMM, so this is the first bit of bad news. This is, again, my baby, but like I've been saying, expect the end of it to drag out a couple more weeks as they add more downstream. It went from 108 weeks to 115 weeks, so they added a couple more months to it, which was totally expected. If you watch the deep dive, I even said I expect this to stretch out into next year. So we ain't getting it for 3.18. Well, maybe 3.18. But I would expect it more for 4.0. This is I'm guessing that the added weeks are probably more related to them just saying, let's drop this thing with 4.0 and it'll kind of be our flagship for that sort of big jump into the future. Moving on down, bounty hunting. There's another one. It jumped, let's see, 19 weeks. So basically they added a third more time. Again, I think this is something where they just kind of realized that they could put more polish into it and it wouldn't matter as much. It's not like the community would be up in arms. So this is one of those things where they're going to make sure that it's really clicking on all cylinders so we don't get something that's half-assed and we basically have to suffer through for 2 or 3 patches while they get it working. They're going to try to drop it in a finished state. Heading on down, we got cargo system refactor, which is right here. They only added 2 weeks onto the end of this one, so they moved it from 84 to 86. We're still close enough, being about 2 months out. 2 weeks isn't that much, so we're still on target with that one. I mean, that one looks pretty good for 318. So yeah, people are saying they don't think Cargo Refactor is going to make it. I think even I said that it might be iffy, but with them stretching out the time they need for Cargo Refactor, it's looking pretty good. So let's keep going. So we've got character work, and this one is a Squadron 42 one, I believe. Yeah, character work and character creator are both Squadron 42, but this is one of those that could be could have a good knock-on effect in the PU, because once they have a character creator and these characters for Squadron 42, there's really no reason for them not to drop it into the PU. I can't really think of a good reason. Maybe they have a good one. Maybe they'll explain it. But I mean, I'm sure they didn't drop the character creator in because there's no point until you have all of these things for it finished. And that one's wrapping pretty soon. So there's nothing on here that says PU, so don't take that as a gold standard on my part. I'm not 100% guaranteeing that, but it would make sense logically that if they finish both of these cards for Squadron 42, dropping a new character creator in 318, not totally beyond the pale there. Charge Drain, right here. There was a little jump on the end of it, so you'll usually get that. They added a couple more weeks to it. You can see that this team just started working, and this is sort of what I was talking about in the deep dive when I said teams will take when they start the work, the first time they come out, they'll be like, yeah, we can finish that in 4 weeks or something. And that's what they put on this roadmap is 4 weeks, because that's what the team said it would take. Then they start working on it and they kind of reassess. And that's sort of what this week looks like it was kind of a reassessment of everybody kind of go through your deliverables, give us realistic timelines, that sort of thing. So they just kind of did a reassessment of all their ones. And that's sort of what happened here is they sort of said, yeah, we're going to need a little bit more time to polish this up and get it working. And so once the, let's see, what is that? Weapon feature team. Yeah, once they started working on it, they're like, yeah, we're going to need a little bit more time. So probably dividing their time among other things. Like, if I had to take a stab in the dark, tractor beam, like the big handheld tractor beam, they're probably working on that. Working on stuff for Squadron 42. Definitely that team does a lot of work. So that one got stretched out a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Corsair, which I'm sure nobody is interested in since nobody likes Stray. Let's go down to that. That one hit the 85% done part. So it is looking pretty solid. This one hasn't moved much. It's been right in the 71 week range for a while now. Again, no downstream teams are in yet. So just like the BMM, just like the Merchantman, that's going to stretch out a little bit. So doesn't mean you're going to get it in week 8 of quarter 3. Don't look for it there. It might be IAE, since they're going to kind of stretch out 318. You might see it there since they're going to be dropping that one in quarter 4. I'm sure they would love to, since they're bouncing the Merchantman, I would guess, to 4.0. And they even said 319. I haven't. 319 seems to kind of be a ghost. I'm going to go into that one and something else some other time. So let's keep going since it's supposed to be fast. Other one that I think is like a big quality of life cool thing, EVA 2.0, or Tier 2. This is a big deal for anyone that's ever moved around in EVA. It needs a lot of help, and it's rounding in on it. I don't know if we'll get that for 317.2. We might. I would expect it around 318. We're close enough now. I wouldn't expect this to stretch out much more. They might put another week or 2 on it for polish. So let's keep on going. FPS radar. This is another one that's kind of a cool little one. Again, we're kind of rounding down. It'll end at about the same time. That one's cool because that'll be moving around in person. You'll actually have a radar for scanning, seeing where people are. I'm not sure if they'll actually have, do we have the weapon feature team on there? No, it doesn't look like the weapon feature team is. So we probably won't be getting like a alien's hand scanner thing. You'll probably have to have a helmet on. It'll be a rough idea. I don't know. They haven't really shown us anything on this, which is weird. But there you go. That one's coming out. Radar and scanning for being in first person, running around first person. That's pretty cool. Hacking. Another little game loop on here that they seem to be going full bore on. This one's looking pretty good. The timeline on it hasn't changed much. It looks like it's coming soon, like actually soon, not soon trademark. Again, this might stretch out a little bit. You might have a couple of teams come in and polish. Of course, it's going to have to go to Evocati and then the PTU. So, I mean, obviously it's going to kick out a little bit. This is going to be another probably 318 thing. They haven't put it on the roadmap yet, the actual release view. So don't count on it yet, but maybe soon. I would not be shocked if they dropped it for 318. Let's see. Hex tools. So this is one of the ones that's for microservices in the mesh. So yeah, this is a server meshing one. 103 weeks. It took a little bit of a jump. A few of these jump from like 80 to 100. So just the team realizing that there's not a rush to get it into the 318 branch at the June patch, which would be 318, would normally be the end of Q2. Now that they know they have a little bit more time, they're kind of taking that time to really make these things polished, which honestly I think they've needed to do for a while on a lot of the past patches. Just take a little more time, let them bake a little more, let Evocati chew on them, let the PTU chew on them, release them into the PU, and the inevitable free fly once they're flowing well. Let's see, so jump points, find that, right down here. So they had a little jump in the number of weeks on this one. I think it went from like 79 to 88. But all in all, looks like it's pretty on target. It's far enough away. And with this obviously not jumping until 4.0, probably going to have more teams in there kind of chewing on it, and then we'll see it next year. So it'll be like Jump Point Spacescaping, which has been done for a little while, where it's completed, but it's not going to be in the game until the actual loops and the supporting structures and they're behind it. Life support. This is a big one. Ladders is still cruising along, but life support tier 0. This will be a big one. This is the room system. Again, it jumped from 88 weeks to 102 weeks. So we're still a ways out on that one. Again, this far out, this is the start of Q2 of next year. So I wouldn't be looking for that one anytime soon. That far out, typically the timeline stretches, and this is one with the room system. They're going to have atmospheres in the ships and stuff. That one's going to be pretty complicated. So don't expect it anytime soon. This is one that there's going to be much rejoicing over, the map and radar system. It is wrapping up pretty soon, and I would expect this to be actually rolling out pretty quickly, because this one is going to be real key for Squadron 42, and anything that is important for Squadron 42 is going to be a focus for them. Like jump points take a back seat to anything like this. So expect the flight model to be improving too. I don't see any deliverables that would indicate that, but I'm sure they're working on that for Squadron. Let's keep going. So that's that rework. The MFD, that's another one that people have been complaining about for a long time with good reason. I think this one was 90 and it jumped to 107. Again, Q1 of next year, expect that number to kind of push out a little bit as they polish it. I'll say we're like 2/3 of the way through on that one, but again, it's going to grow more. There's no way something as big as that isn't going to take a lot of time to polish, especially with it being in Squadron 42. It's going to be one of those things that you're going to be in your ship most of the game. They want that to be your first experience flying around in the ship. They have to nail that. So, again, though, you're going to see the benefits in the PU pretty quickly because that one is dropping into Squadron. So let's see. I think that this is, you'll see this occasionally. They have the Microtech, you'll notice the Microtech Lagrange point improvements aren't on here anymore. Unless I just missed it. No, I didn't. It'd be right in there. So sometimes you'll have things that'll drop off like that I think is just a mistake. Somewhere in the Jira, somebody just didn't click a checkbox or something, and so it doesn't show up on this. They're still working on it. It's not gone. It's on the release view. I think they're finished with it, so it's removed, but it'll be there in 2 weeks. So I don't lose sleep over that. Mission Manager app. So this is one. Yeah, so this is one that I actually think is actually gone. Is there was a Mission Manager app deliverable that they took out. They hadn't started work on it, so not a big deal that it went away. And the one that we got works. So, I mean, I'm sure they kind of took a look at it and just sort of said priorities, which is fine. That's the whole point of doing this. Mobiglass rework, another one that's kind of needed a bit of an update for a while. It works, but it's kind of clunky. We're almost done. Again, Squadron 42, this close to the deliverable date. We could be getting a lot of UI improvements like the Mobiglass in the next one. Let's see. So this is the Origin 600i Gold Standard, which for people like me that have the Explorer version, this is a big deal. You might notice that last time we had this, the deliverable date was somewhere over here, and they just chopped it and they said, no, it's finished back here. I don't think that's what's going on. I think what they're doing is they're waiting for a team, like probably a downstream team or something, to finish up, wrap another project, and then you'll see that bar will stretch out and it'll say something like 30 weeks or something, and then they'll have a team doing a small sprint up here just to kind of polish it up and get it up to standard. That's all that's going on with that one, would be my guess. It's not actually finished. Don't run to your hangar and look at the 600i. Let's keep going. So Homesteads, which is right down here. So the Outpost Homestead. These both had, again, another jump, 88 to 117. So yeah, they just kind of did a quick reassessment. So we were going to end somewhere in here. This team said, yeah, we're going to need a little bit more time, so they gave it to them. Again, not a bad thing, getting something a little bit more polished. Persistent streaming, another huge one for us. See, all the teams are working on this one. It's still on target. Again, that target is a little ways out, which I think it's Q1, Q2 of next year. So expect that one to stretch out a little bit more. Obviously, their own QA is going to find issues when these teams are done with it. Then they're going to drop Ivacati. Ivacati is going to find issues. Persistent streaming is going to break a lot before it fixes a lot. So it's a big deal. It's a huge milestone, but like any of the big milestones in this game, it's going to break a lot when it comes in. So be ready. Prepare your butts. So let's go on. Player interaction is, yeah. Player interaction, there we go. Rope simulation, there you go. So yeah, ropes are actually, in theory, ending at the end of this week. What team's just the physics team? So yeah, we might be getting some rope play, don't make that dirty, for 317.2, 318. 318 might have a lot of cool stuff in it. We'll see. We'll see what rope physics are all entailing. But the player interaction experience, these are all three very important things for Squadron 42, so they've got a lot of focus on, so don't expect them to drift much. But all three of these, which are hints and interactions, which I think that one's got a little ways. Oh no, that one's wrapping soon. Both of these are Q1 of next year. Again, these are deliverables that they really have to nail for Squadron 42, so expect those to stretch out a little bit as they polish them. They both had, I think all three of these had pretty significant jumps. Like they were, I think this one was 20 and it jumped to 40. I think this one was like 40 and it jumped to 70. So expect that to continue. Those teams really need to knock that out of the park to make Squadron 42 a great game. So it'll be cool when we get it, but it's still a ways out. Let's see. So Pyro System emissions right here. This one had a pretty big jump. Again, it went from, I think it was 80 weeks to 113 weeks. So again, they pushed it out to, they realized they had that 4.0 is going to be a ways out. It's not going to be coming at the end of the year, so there's no giant crunch. So they pushed it out again. This date will probably stretch out to whenever they decide to drop 4.0, which will largely be dependent on when they drop 3.18 and 3.19, which they've mentioned a couple times, but I don't know with that one. With 3.19's been mentioned like once or twice, but it's not on their release view, or maybe it is by now. Let's see. Wait for it. Yeah, they do have 3.19 on there, but they haven't mentioned 3.19. They've just mentioned 3.18 and 4.0. So I don't know what's going on with that. Okay, here we go. So Raistar is kind of a cool one. So this is the one, this is going to be the interface that they're going to use for building bases. And I would assume just kind of maybe crafting in general, but this will be huge for the Pioneer, which again, Pioneer isn't on the roadmap. Don't expect it anytime soon. But eventually we will be getting these tools. But these are the tools they use to make the outposts, and eventually we will be using these to make the outpost according to last year's CitizenCon. Again, got a little ways out, not quite as far as some of the other ones, but do expect that to kind of push out again. There was a big jump. It jumped from 80 to 100, so 20 weeks, roughly between a third to half a year based on the development cycle. So Raistar got pushed, which is fine because we don't have anything that can take advantage of it yet. So why bother? We don't want players making outposts when persistence isn't in, because what would be the point? So fine if it moves out. Salvage is, of course, another big game loop, which is right there. There's a little jump on this one. I think it went from, I think it was wrapping somewhere in here, and now it's out here. Again, this is kind of in that gray area where it might stretch out a little bit more, but it's roughly on target. Hang on, I'm back. So let's see. So we'll scroll down. Satellites, points of interest. This is that's kind of an interesting one. I'll talk about more of that when it gets a little bit further along. Next one is, I've heard a few content creators talking about this one, saying that when Fire Sprite got taken over by Sony and Sony said stop working on Star Citizen, people were saying, well, Theaters of War is dead. Theaters of War is still going on, and I mean it's still kicking in there. So I have actually played Theaters of War a couple times, and it's fun. I think that's about all I can say about that, just given the NDA. It'll be a good game mode, and I would assume they're still working on it, and it sure looks like it's coming along. I think they're probably waiting for server meshing just to kind of make sure it's the best experience. I don't know how impacted it would be by server meshing, actually. I don't know. There's a techie person if you want to put it in the comments whether that would make a difference or not. I don't know. It's kind of an isolated game like Arena Commander or Star Marine. But cool game mode. Cool game mode. Could appeal to a lot of different types of players, and as supporters of this game, we want this game to have as broad appeal as possible so that it pulls in more people and keeps the thing going. Let's see. So unannounced ships, these are always kind of fun to do. So we lost one unannounced vehicle. It hadn't had any work done on it, but this is kind of one of those things. I've seen a few comments of people saying that unannounced ships are solely concept ships we haven't seen before. I think that that is typically the case, is not always the case. Like the Banu Merchantman was one of these announced ships until they sort of said, what are we doing? Let's tell people we're making this thing. I think it'll be rare, but I think in the early days, they could, when they're looking at the calendar a few months out or like a year out and sort of saying, yeah, we can work this ship into the schedule. It kind of makes sense with this gameplay. They kind of put it in the unannounced section until they're sure that they want to let people know. I don't really blame them for that. I would guess that the vast majority of these are actual concepts, especially if you see that the concept team is working on them. It's kind of a giveaway. If you see a vehicle content team working on it only, that might have been a sign that it's something we've seen before. But yeah, unannounced ships are an interesting territory because they might land something that we know about there, just so that the community doesn't get all hyped up and say, oh, well, this ship is coming next year, so, you know, it's coming. And then they're all like, oh, well, we couldn't get started on it. We had other priorities, and then people lose their shit. There you are. So moving on, that's kind of my quick take on unannounced. Is we lost one, but they hadn't started work on it, so we all know what it is. Okay. Underground facilities. This one had a little jump on it. I think 95. I think it was like high 70s or 80s. I try not to pay too much attention to that. I just pay attention when they jump. Again, this is going to be Q1 of next year, so probably going to flow out a little bit farther. Again, I think that's something that they're just sort of saying what we have works. It's not perfect, obviously, but it works. So we'll just keep that, and we'll make sure that the new one blows people's mind, is really polished. Moving on, we've got Visor. This is another thing that is going to be, this is another big one that kind of like MFDs, because it's the UI that the player is going to be interacting with the most during the gameplay. They have to nail it, and it's for Squadron 42, so it's going to be pretty on the nose, and they got to nail it. But it's coming soon, and as soon as Squadron 42 gets it, we'll probably get in the PU pretty quickly thereafter. So the Scorpia is missing some HUDs. Not going to be a really big deal for too much longer. If it's not dropping in 3.17.2, it's going to be 3.18. So by the end of the year, you'll have improved MFDs and visors and all that. Hopefully that doesn't stretch out more. Weapon Misfire and Tear. This one had another little jump. Again, the team just started work on it. So again, it's the weapon features team. So again, probably a small team working on other things. Sort of saying, okay, well, this, and this, if we combine all those, we can get it to you in this amount of time. So just splitting their effort. Just remember, they don't have 700 people just on the weapon feature team. They have, like, at a guess, 7 to 10 people that work on that for the entire game, which is true for most of their dev teams. They're not huge teams. They don't have hundreds of people working on one feature. So again, weapon fire and wear, that'll be cool when we get it. They'll probably drop it with persistence. So maybe 3.18 we'll get that. Maybe 4.0. We'll find out. I would imagine 3.18, that would be a possible one. And then ZeroG and push and pull, this is a big one that goes along with the EVA that needs a lot of help. We're getting close. So EVA and moving around in space is going to be a lot smoother than it has been probably since 2.6, I think, was the last time I had an EVA experience where I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And even then, it was kind of like, I've played other games. I mean, when you have just about every space game I can think of has better EVA than Star Citizen. Like, even kind of quote unquote joke games like Breath Edge had pretty good EVA compared to Star Citizen. So I am sure it is something that the devs have been looking at and saying, we need to nail that too for a space game, especially as a Squadron 42. I don't think we're going to have a lot of EVA in Squadron 42, but just from the vertical slice we saw, we know there's some. And that is really it for the shallow dive. Kind of keep it short and sweet. So see me next time.